There's always going to be somebody better, faster, whatever your metrics are, richer, whatever it is that you get jealous about. There's always going to be someone ahead of you, and there's always going to be someone behind you. And so you're either like striving, I'm jealous because they're ahead of me, or I got to stay in front of the people that are behind me. It's exhausting. That mindset is exhausting. When you focus just on becoming your best self, accepting yourself, and then transforming the pieces of yourself that you find challenging, you're in that bliss body and you're floating up the mountain. Welcome to the world of energy, where science meets spirit. Ancient wisdom merges with cutting-edge knowledge, and the possibilities for a healthier, happier you are endless.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Energy Works. And today we have an episode that is one of those topics that Lauren and I talk about routinely when we're just talking about the business or chatting as friends or what have you, and say, we should do a podcast about that. But then we do podcasts about other things, and then we circle back. Why haven't we done a podcast about that? And today we're doing it. We are doing this podcast about a topic close to our hearts, which is women lifting up other women or not. Because it's really, we talk about both things, women uplifting other women and women not uplifting other women and passing up opportunities where it would have been so easy of them to do that. But because of their own, I'll say, issues that we'll dig into what stops us, I'll just say us for women, since Lauren and I are both women and we identify as women, what stops us from doing it when we could. And honestly, Lauren is an incredible role model in this regard, which is part of the reason why it comes up in conversations so much, because Lauren truly sees and seizes upon opportunities to uplift other women all the time and bring other women to opportunities that she has, or recommend women for opportunities, or share the work of other women, which is a way that we have to uplift women. And I think that it's like, I mean, I was going to say pay it forward, but more than that, it's the energetic vibration. I think Lauren has really felt the joy that this practice has brought her. And so it makes her just want to do it more and more. And the more that she's a role model for all of us watching her do it, then it trickles down. And I think that's a great aspect of this conversation, because maybe we'll bring it into your awareness and it will trickle down that way too. So, hey, Lauren, thank you for being such a great promoter of other women, including me.
Awesome. Thank you. Hi, Blaine. I like the idea trickle down, but I like more the idea of the rising tide lifting all boats. Because that trickle down can just be like, oh, you get a little drop of the amrit that I have, or the juice that I have. And I'd rather that, I don't know what the metaphor would be, like the tidal wave, and I'm gathering everyone onto the boat, right? So that we can just ride the wave together. Yeah, I really love this idea. And I love the way you sort of talked about why women don't do that. And I want to maybe start with, because I've been really thinking about this a lot coming up to this podcast, of why I do that. And there's a couple of reasons. One is like the positive and one's the negative, and they both lead to the same thing. The positive is because I've had many, many women help uplift me in my life, and that's that idea of paying it forward. From Donna Eden, from my Aunt Dora, who was the first person that really led me to understanding the power of being a woman and being a woman in community. And there's many other, I don't want to start name dropping all the women that have helped me, but I've had a lot of incredible support from close women in my life. And then I've also had a lot of the opposite, which is really kind of what spurred me on. I've been the receiver of a lot of mean girl stuff, a lot of abuse, neglect, isolation. I actually wrote a book at one point called Lie on the Mat, The Mean Girls of Yoga. Because when I started in my yoga journey, I was so surprised at how mean girl full it was. And to the point of, I've written now 3 books on energy medicine yoga, and this isn't even an ego statement because I really feel like this work is, it's sort of channeled through. It's from Donna Eden, and I've really, put it together, but I don't claim ownership of it because it's really our birthright of how we operate. It's just the owner's manual that I've just made written. But we've had, and because you're co-owner of the company, so you read all of these too, these people that write incredible changes and healings that they've had in their life in this style of yoga versus many other styles of yoga. And it's not even a versus because it's inclusive, right? Energy medicine yoga is something that you do with other styles of yoga. But when these books came out, I mean, crickets. The yoga world is run primarily by women. The magazines are run by women. The retreats, the festivals, all primarily run by women. And I mean, crickets. Nobody reached out saying congratulations on your book, or this is exciting, I'd like to incorporate this, or I'd like to learn more about this, I'd like to bring you to these festivals. Like crickets. And I'm just, my ego on one point is sort of hurt, but beyond that, I'm like, aren't you in the business of helping people heal and grow? But no, what I've seen over and over again is that so many women view the world through a zero-sum game. In other words, there's only so much, there's one small pie, and I need my piece of it. And if I give you a piece of the pie, then I have less. And there's also this idea, because we see women elevate women to a certain point. Like, you can be my teaching assistant, but you can only come so far. And I'm not even going to pay you. I'm going to use your labor because I want to keep you down a little bit. So you can be at my shoulder, but you can't come any higher than my shoulder. Because if you get higher than me, then my ego gets crushed. And I just feel the opposite. I want everyone to fly higher than me and soar bigger and get greater. And that doesn't feel like it diminishes me. It feels like I had a spark of your ascension. And I see what you're doing in the world now and all the people you're helping. And so I feel joy from that. And that's really actually, it's a yoga sutra. You feel joy at other people's joy instead of this jealousy and this cutting down and this desperate housewives or desperate yoga wives or desperate anything women, where we are just trained to be mean and cruel and cutting and competitive with each other. So I think we need to shift that paradigm, and I know that we actively are doing it, but we need more of it. And I know that you agree with me because we're here talking about it.
Yeah, the scarcity mindset. It's a real, I think, block to women supporting other women, promoting other women, recommending other women. And yes, as yoga teachers, I feel like a metric of our success should be how many women got onto our shoulders and became something greater than us. We were a part, and we're always just a part. Each of these human beings draws upon their own intelligence, creativity, intestinal fortitude, other people they've interacted with in their life experiences, transcending problems each woman has done all of this. And so the extent that we as yoga teachers can be a shoulder that someone else stands on so that she can go higher, I think that's every time we can support someone in that way, when it's time for us to hang up our yoga teaching, whatever we want to call it, our yoga teaching scarf, and retire, the more women who can say that we were part of their journey, I think that's the most good, the most impactful, not any other measure, I think means anything close to that. And I was a woman in the workforce, maybe call it a second generation woman. I think that my mother's generation, and my mother was older when she had me. And, I believe my mother's generation was probably, because my grandmother's generation, not so much in the workforce. But my mother's generation, I feel like really was the first one shoulder to shoulder with men in the corporate conference rooms, getting on boards, um, working in the corporate world like that. And then I stood on the shoulders of those women. Everything they fought for, everything they experienced, everything they normalized. My generation had opportunities because those women did that then. And I think that is our job as women, to create opportunities for other women and girls. Otherwise, what are we doing this for?
Yeah, that's a huge question. And what are we doing this for? And I think what we see often is, and maybe peeling it back to that initial entry point into the, let's just call it the man's world, right? That these women, my mother was at the forefront of the feminist movement, right? The bra burning movement, right? And at that point, it was like, we're going to have one woman on the whatever committee, on the board we're going to hire. And so absolutely, the competition was fierce because you needed to be better than every other woman in order to get your foot in the door. So you can see that would have led to this idea that is still, it's not like, if you look at numbers of, who heads the Fortune 500 companies and, numbers of self-made billionaires or millionaires and all of those metrics, right? Women are still not in anywhere close to the majority if you look at any of the fields that were primarily dominated by men. And yet, if we don't shift out of that, it's me or someone else, so I'm going to make sure it's me, then how are we going to shift that? And when you look at thought leaders that are the ones that are, I don't know, charged with really helping us to change our thoughts, right? Isn't that what a thought leader is? They're helping us to have new thoughts, new ideas so that we can be expansive. And when you see them falling into these same patterns, it is so, I'm going to use the word demoralizing. For example, many people know the writer and thought leader, I'm going to call her, Mel Robbins. She's huge in this world, and she writes books, and she's got a massive podcast following. And her latest book is a plagiarized idea. Point blank, she stole this idea from a woman. Let's elevate Cassie Phillips. Cassie Phillips came up with the idea of the let them theory. And then Mel Robbins stole the idea, wrote a book, is on a city book tour, selling out, talking to Oprah, like all of these things on another woman's idea. All she had to do was write, this is where this idea came from. She could still write the whole book. You can't, it's an idea and everyone has, availability of ideas. She could have just said, this is where this idea came from. I'm going to elevate this idea and I'm going to elevate Cassie Phillips. But she didn't. And she then had deny, and now has to lie. She's just poisoned, in my opinion, her whole brand, her whole reputation. Why? Because she didn't elevate, she didn't want to. This is a choice. She knew exactly what she was doing. She didn't want to elevate another woman. And to me, I'd love to sit down with Mel Robbins and be like, dudette, what were you thinking? Like, why did you think that was okay? And not even okay, a good idea to make your millions off of the back of another woman who you completely dismissed. And I don't even have the words to, we need Brene Brown to bring in the shame, because Brene Brown talks about like how to get rid of your shame, but there is positive shame too. And that positive shame is when you do something that's egregiously wrong, you should feel shame for your actions and therefore learn to transform your actions into something that you won't feel ashamed about, which is giving credit where credit is due, which is one of the points that you talk about. What do you think about that whole scenario with, I'm going to say with Cassie? I don't even want to say the other woman's name anymore. I want to say Cassie Phillips with her let them theory.
Yeah, Cassie, I believe this is public information. Anyone can Google this. I believe that she wrote it in a poem, had a let them poem or something like that. That is very publicly available. I mean, there's the chronological history of let them is very publicly available, and it did not come from Mel. But I want to, when you mentioned Brene, it made me remember something that is the absolute opposite. So I am a Brene Brown fan. And this was maybe around the beginning of the pandemic. I can't remember exactly when it happened. It's irrelevant, really. So, you know, on social media, how people post quote cards or quote pages. So someone posted a quote and attributed it to Brene Brown. And it was on social media. And Brene saw the quote and said, I never said that. That's an incredible quote. That is not my quote. And at great expense, personal, you know, her company, whatever, she had people on her team find who said this quote, find out who this was. Attribution is important. And Brene says that all the time. She's a writer. Attribution is important. It is a core value of hers. And she couldn't handle it. And so she paid people to hunt down who the actual author of that quote was and publicly make the correction and get the attribution right, that it was not her. And therefore, she could elevate the woman who actually said that quote. And I know, right? I mean, that's modeling the behavior that we want. And I was amazed that she did that. Yes, it is the right thing to do. So I shouldn't be so amazed that a woman is doing the right thing, or a man or anyone is doing the right thing. But she really went to great lengths and expense to correct this wrong that she's not the one who created in the first place. And I think it's mindset. And there's a book for attribution. There's a book that I love called Strong Women Lift Other Women Up. Or no, Strong Women Lift Each Other Up. That's it. Strong Women Lift Each Other Up. And it's by Molly Galbraith is her name. And she has a whole book on this. And one of the themes of her book is cementing it into the way you move through the world. And you're just always looking for opportunities. It's part of your mission to lift other women up. So when you're buying something, really trying to buy it from a woman-owned business, being very thoughtful when you make your purchases, by supporting women, by purchasing from women-owned businesses. When you see women, give them genuine compliments. Whenever you can, just constantly compliment, get my alliteration down, other women. When you have an opportunity to promote a woman's work, promote it, or suggest a woman's work, or suggest a woman's book, or suggest a woman's business. Or if you hear of a job opportunity that someone's looking for and you can think of a woman in your life who would be perfect for that job opportunity, suggest them, pass her name on. And so you're constantly working to elevate women in all the little minute ways, because I know some of you listening to this podcast or watching on YouTube may be thinking, like, I don't have much of a platform. How can I promote other women? But it's through all these little actions that you do all the time that you're making the world a better place for women and girls growing up into this world. And another thing I learned from Molly in her book was Molly calls it calling other women in. And this is something I've specifically been practicing since I read the book. I read the book, I think, last fall. And she calls it calling other women in, not calling other women out, because you could think of it as calling other women out. But the spirit is to raise the awareness to the people in your circle. And so if you're with a woman or women and you hear someone say something negative about another woman or disparaging, don't take it. Don't just smile and nod or agree. By all means, please don't agree, especially if it's mean. Just call them in. Say something like, wow, why would you say something like that? And then allow the other woman the opportunity to maybe have to dig herself out of a hole that she put herself in. But the act that you gave her that opportunity will maybe make her think twice before she says something mean about a woman again. Or you can say, that was unkind. Why would you say something so unkind? Or that was an unkind thing to say. Or even if your experience is opposite, you can say, that hasn't been my experience with her. And it really reinforces not only the words that are coming out of your own mouth as you're talking about other women, but the listening to how women talk about each other and trying to pattern interrupt. Because this comparison, the jealousy and the comparison is very deep in our habit field. I mean, we just grew up, we probably watched our moms being jealous in comparison, and our sisters and our friends. And we go around talking about other women in a negative way just by habit. And so we need, it just starts with us. Like the buck stops with us, not doing it ourselves, and then calling other women in so that maybe they'll stop doing it too. Lauren, do you like hear people being mean about women? I do all the
I
time.
do. I do all the time too. And then, as you were saying that, I was thinking about, calling women in. Maybe it works both ways when women are being mean about other women. But then the flip side is the women that we're talking about that are not doing this upholding and lifting up that we're talking about. How do we bring them in to the fold of the sisterhood, the womanhood, right? So, for example, Mel, how do we bring her back into the fold from doing something so egregious and damaging and detrimental to recognizing her bad behavior and to actively Brene Browning it, shifting her bad behavior, or to the women in the yoga world that are so tightly holding this idea, this scarcity consciousness that there's only this many yoga teacher or this many yoga students to go around. And if I elevate somebody else that has a different style and they go to her, then I'm going to lose my money or my livelihood or whatever. So how do we bring them in as well? Because, that's a big piece of it. And I'm not sure how that works. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. And I know that I think you know where I'm going because we've talked about this and we try to model for others this. I'm going to say it that so I'm going to be a little bit profane. We need to fix our own shit. Because if I can stop the vibration inside of me that is jealous and the vibration inside of me that is in comparison and the vibration inside of me that feels scarcity, then the buck stops with me. And so if I can fix it and I can model being someone who has fixed it, then that vibration will carry forward in my thoughts, right? Because it really all starts with our thoughts. This may sound like a little of a divergence, but it's on the top of my mind because I talked about this when I was just teaching in Bahamas. So in the book Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda, when he was a young yoga student and he was with his guru and they were learning the yamas and niyamas and nonviolence and all of that when he was a young boy with his guru. And there was a mosquito. They're outside. It's India. Actually, is probably in the late 1800s. And so mosquitoes. And so there's a mosquito that was really bothering him as he was listening to his guru. And he was like, I'm not going to kill it. I'm not, in his head, nonviolence. And he was really proud. And he told his guru afterwards, I didn't kill the mosquito. And his guru said, but you thought about killing the mosquito. So the violence is in your mind. You have the violence in your mind and heart. And I think the quote in the book was, you already struck the death blow, even though he didn't actually kill the mosquito. And so, I mean, I think that's how deep it has to be, is not just that we're, I guess, putting tape over our mouth. But we're actually not thinking it and feeling it to begin with. I mean, I think that's where fix your own shit goes.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. I love that. And I've really spent a lot of time because I've spent a lot of time in my life being jealous. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about where jealousy comes from and how you root it out. Just what you're saying. How do you eliminate that feeling? Because the other piece is from that side, those yoga teachers, Mel Robbins, that world, right? It doesn't feel good. Like, I can't imagine Mel's going to sleep right now being like, Yahoo, I got a bestseller. She's going to sleep like, oh, I just screwed up so bad and now everything sucks and it's horrible and I don't know what to do. I need to call Brene Brown, right? So she's got to be feeling that yuck that you feel inside when you've done something wrong, which is the compulsion to transform your behavior, right? Is that feeling sense. It doesn't feel good to be mean, to be nasty, and even let alone the external action. It doesn't feel good inside just to feel that, to feel jealousy, to feel like you want to kill the mosquito, even if you're not going to. It doesn't feel good. And one thing I thought about, I went for this hike yesterday, and I think about, because I know you're a competitive athlete, and I'm just a recreational athlete, but you're a competitive athlete, which means you want to run faster than everybody else. Like, that is your motivation, to be faster than everybody else. And so if somebody comes to the starting line and you look over at them and you see their muscles are bigger, their, whatever it is, their bike is better, whatever it is, right? Then you might have a glimpse of like, look at how she got so bigger than I did. I got to go to the gym and work out even harder. But what I thought when I was on the trail, because there's people behind me and there's people in front of me and then there's people passing me. And I'm thinking, if I'm jealous, then all those people are in my head. And I'm not with myself. And I was working yesterday trying to repattern my actual walking pace uphill. I'm trying to repattern what I'm doing because I was getting an injury. And so I'm trying to repattern it. And as I was repatterning, like anything energetically that you're repatterning, all I could do was focus on that. Anytime my mind went to, oh, I've got to work on that project, then my footsteps went back to what they were doing and the pain came back. I had to focus 100% of my energy on this new idea that I was putting in and lifting this muscle, and very specific. The toe goes like that. The ankle goes like that. Very specific. And when I did that, no pain, and I was floating up the mountain. So when I put all my focus on myself, I wasn't jealous about the person going faster than me. I was so in my own work, my own self, my own beautiful energetic field. My joy was off the charts. It didn't matter to me where I was on the mountain. My joy was off the charts. And so I really think that if you refocus, there's always going to be somebody better, faster, whatever your metrics are, richer, whatever it is that you get jealous about. There's always going to be someone ahead of you, and there's always going to be someone behind you. And so you're either like striving, I'm jealous because they're ahead of me, or I got to stay in front of the people that are behind me. It's exhausting. That mindset is exhausting. When you focus just on becoming your best self, accepting yourself, and then transforming the pieces of yourself that you find challenging, you're in that bliss body and you're floating up the mountain. I literally passed the turnoff to turn around because I was going so fast and easily up the mountain. All of a sudden I was like, I'm going downhill. Did I miss my turn? I did, because I was just floating. And that is, I think, how you can overcome that jealousy impulse that you have.
That's a great metaphor. And it's the same thing as an athlete, is just focusing on your own performance, because you can't control who else shows up to that race. You can't control what kind of day you can't control any of the rest of it. Literally, the only thing that you can control is your own performance. And then the chips fall where they fall, and you do the best you can do and go on. And so that's, I mean, that is where I think younger athletes get more tied up into who's showing up and looking at the, registration list and all of that. And then you just mature out of it. Eventually that, you find the joy, exactly what you said, in your own performance and doing the best that you can do. And the if we have the vibration of the jealousy and comparison inside of us, then we project it onto other people. And I see it in business when I'm working with people, but I work with mostly women in business. There are so many times that a woman who maybe hasn't been an entrepreneur before feels fear and trepidation and hesitancy to do it. And when you start to ask questions, what's the holdup? It is often, very often, they're worried about what other people think of them. Who does she think she is? They're going to take on an identity that they have not had before. And so they fear judgment from other people. And that stops them from doing this thing in their life they want to do. But the truth is, they assume other people are going to be judging them because they themselves judge other people. And that's how it works. If we didn't do it to other people, we wouldn't assume that somebody else would do it to us. And so it's back to that internal happiness thing. If we can stop internally, even if we don't vocalize them, having the jealousy and the comparison and the scarcity, if we can just make it go away and see the world as abundant and there's enough for everyone, then it also stopping us from doing things in fear of judgment from other people. When I go to business dinners or business networking events that are primarily men, or maybe sometimes I'm the only woman, it's amazing how much men share about everything. They share what their financial quarter was like, how much money they made last year, how much their profit was, how much their gross revenue was, how much their expenses were, how many people they've hired on their team, how much is their payroll. I mean, they just share. They're constantly helping each other they're really like, hey, compare to me. Like, this is where I am in my business. This is how many employees I have. At this revenue level, I had this. At this revenue level, I have this. So the comparison can help others. When I'm in a group of all women business owners, it's like everybody's afraid of being judged and compared against. And so there's almost no sharing. And so I take it upon myself to create an environment where we can share with each other, to use your metaphor, Lauren, so that the boats can all rise together. And so it comes from inside us. It's the fix your own shit again.
It's so true. And, we've talked about this too, the sort of male versus female with the whole podcasting thing. Like, so many of the top male podcasters, they are just constantly seeding each other back and forth. You come on my podcast, I come on your podcast. Like, that just happens all the time. And it doesn't happen so much on the woman run podcast. I mean, there are some for sure. And I can't even speak to that fully. You could probably speak to that much more. There are, the podcast We Can Do Hard Things, I think is the name of it. And, there's several podcasts that certainly do that. But just the general gestalt of the culture is men have that help each other out, and women have that compete and restrict. And, that's historical. That's, it kind of goes back to, I mean, the marriage market, right? Where you were competing to make the best marriage match. And so it really was, that was all the currency that you had. And if somebody beat you to that, then you did not have a good life. And so we do need to move beyond that. We need to get into the place where women lift each other up. What is it? Strong women lift each other up? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
strong women lift each other up.
Yeah.
Because we're the only ones that are going to change the culture, right? There's nobody else that's going to come and do it for us. We have to do the hard work, and we have to dismantle the internal, I'm going to call it the patriarchy, because that is where that self hatred and that we only had a certain currency and this is all it was worth and we're going to be pitted against each other and all of that has come from the patriarchy, and the only way to dismantle it is for us to dismantle it. And so the more that we start to do that, we do the internal work, we do the, I'm going to say it, we do the energy medicine yoga work, which is how you clean up your shit. Check out your trauma, check out your own internal voices. You know if you're jealous. You know when you walk into a room and you see someone that's wearing the dress that you can't afford, you know exactly how you feel, right? And so you have to identify that and then take the responsibility for that, dismantle that in yourself to the end that you will feel better and feel happier and be more joyful and understand that the expensive dress isn't going to make you happy. What's going to make you happy is the internal peace and calm and quiet and the ability to access your own true heart and your own true nature, which never has anything to do with how much stuff you have or how big or how any fancy or any of that stuff. So you've got to do the hard work. And when you do that hard work, I'm going to step back for a second and make this qualification. Because doing this work, hard might not be the right word. It is difficult, it is challenging, but not doing it is harder. Not doing the trauma healing, which is really what that is so much more painful, and that you drag that beast on your back with you your whole life. It is so much more work than the perceived idea of going into it is going to be. Once you go into the trauma work and you unpack it, it's joyful, it's cleansing, it's freeing. And then you're in this network of incredible women, sisterhood, that you all elevate each other up, and it is joyful. It then starts to be what we look at when we see those kind of Hallmark ideas or those Hallmark movies, and we're like, oh, that's not really what it's like, but it can be like that. We can step into that joyful community. And I know that. I'm going to just speak for myself. I know that because that's where I live now. I live in that place. And I have on my speed dial, I can't even tell you how many women who both elevate me and who I am ready to elevate as soon as they are ready to be elevated. And it feels so good. It is like a joyful experience to lift someone else up, especially when it is for no benefit to yourself. It's not, I'm doing this because I get some extra benefit. It is simply for the idea of elevating. And if you can't quite grok that, I invite you to think to places in your life where you can. If you have children and you see them grow and succeed, you feel so much joy for that. And so if you can think about that feeling, you can have that in all these areas of your life. It doesn't have to just be something that's so closely attached to you. Elevation it's really for the global good, because when you elevate somebody else, then they feel that goodness and they elevate someone else. And then we have a world where we lift each other up instead of punching down, which is it's so old. I'm just over it. Let's just be over that. It is so old and useless and painful and horrible. And there's no purpose, because you don't feel better when you kick somebody off the ladder that's climbing up underneath you, or you step on their fingers when they're getting to your rung. You don't. If you go into the truth of your heart, it does not make you feel better. And really, what you're going for in your life is to feel good.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. So let's talk about the energy technique that we want to share for those times that you may be feeling the scarcity or the jealousy or have an opportunity to uplift another woman or recommend her for an opportunity or share information about her that will be helpful for her, but you feel the hesitation, right? There, you feel that little bit of scarcity or jealousy or what, whatever's like making you hesitate, that is probably not a pure an emotion coming from the love heart. It is an emotion coming from maybe the scarcity heart. What Lauren and I, because we always like to share a technique, and the one that immediately jumped to our mind is the thymus thump. And the thymus thump creates this vibration. Yes, we have the thymus gland that is right underneath the sternum here. We also have our heart really nearby. We have this big plate of bone that vibrates when we thump on it. It is this place of energetic courage that we can, you can think of the gorillas going into battle thumping on their chest, or athletes now you'll see them thumping on their chest. They want to be their absolute best self in the moment, and so they're using this vibration to transcend fear and uncertainty so that they can be their absolute best self. So the thymus thump, it's very simple. You can just take one hand or two right in the middle of the sternum. It's nice to breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. You're releasing any negativity. And then you're ready to do the right thing. Anything to add about thymus that I missed?
The only thing that I would add is the other piece of this is it brings you directly into your heart-centered self. And that is the place that all goodness starts from. And so everything that you said, Blaine, about, your courage and overcoming and being your best self, it's also being your best heart-centered self, your truest self, which when you strip away all of the egoic layers of your persona is always geared towards goodness. That's just the nature of the heart. And so thumping on this point brings you right back into your essential self, your essentialness, as we like to call it, the part of you that is the goodest. I'm going to use that. I'm going to create that, the goodest part of you. So, and it feels good. It feels empowering and powerful. And you then you do it. Then you do it all. It's gratifying.
And you can also envision yourself doing it. So if you're in the moment and you have an opportunity to call a woman in, and so maybe she's saying something that is uncomplimentary about another woman or not uplifting another woman, and you want to say something, then, and it may be hard sometimes to call a woman in like that, then you can take a breath and just imagine your heart thumping on your heart, coming from your heart-centered self, and just do it. Say to the woman, why would you say that? Or can you explain further what you mean by that? Or something like that. Because I promise you, I've been practicing this since last fall. The more you do it, the easier it gets. And then the more you do it, the less people say mean things about other women in front of you because they know you're going to call them in. And that's from Molly Galbraith. And I think it works. I really think it's just an incredible, life-changing thing that Molly wrote in her book that I've been practicing that I think really matters. But it takes a little bit of courage the first few times you do it.
Okay, I'm going to take that. I'm going to thump and I'm going to call in Mel Robbins. We'd love to invite you on our podcast to talk about what you did in your work and what you've continued to do since you've been called out about it. But we'd like to call you in to talk about the healing that could come with your full acknowledgement of what you did, and maybe a deeper understanding in your own mind of why you did it. Maybe you felt scarcity consciousness yourself, or you felt jealousy of somebody who came up with an intellectual idea that you didn't. And talk that through and getting to a place where you could then elevate Cassie Phillips. That would be a huge, incredible, beautiful thing. So Mel Robbins, we're going to call you in. Come join us on our podcast. We'd love to have you here. We'd love to bring all of the women in. There's no voting anyone off the island. It's really about healing all of our hearts so that we can all be on the island together. And so thanks, everyone, for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. We know it's a really big and powerful issue. So drop us a note. Let us know if this resonated with you. And we can't wait to talk to you more about all of these great ideas that we are working through on Energy Works.
Bye, everybody. Alrighty, Energy fans, that's a wrap on another positively charged episode of Energy Works. Lauren, this is the part where we get to use our energy puns.
It's been electrifying, hasn't it, Blaine? We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
If you're feeling amped up and you want to keep your energy flowing, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform.
And we'd love to hear from you. So please take a moment to leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to deliver content that resonates. So light up our inbox.
And spark a conversation with your friends to tell them about us. And we'll see you next time on Energy Works.